Okay, Reducing Gun Violence in Illinois, a study of effective methods of crime reduction. Let's start with the literature. Addressing the root causes of these issues is the best way to handle this violence and its gradual progression through the state of Illinois. The literature reviewed points to addressing the source and cutting the problem out at the root. Solving gun violence requires a rewrite of state policy and a general upgrade in public housing. Crime is influenced by the built environment. Broken windows, crime prevention through environmental design, situational crime prevention, and economic theories of the supply of and demand for criminal opportunities offer explanations. Zoning, designs of house and markets, locations of public transit, and land uses shape the built environment in ways that can increase or reduce crime. That's from the McDonald article. Refocusing the discussions of crime reduction is not an easy task. Schneider works to explain the connections between obstacles preventing success in these communities and the disadvantages that have led to local crimes and general disorder. He states that in refocusing crime prevention, he explores the capacity of disadvantaged neighborhoods to organize around issues related to local crime and disorder. He identifies obstacles to community mobilization, many of which are strongly related to demographic and socio-psychological factors, including low socioeconomic status and a lack of local social integration. Other obstacles stem from weaknesses in program implementation, such as inappropriate or ineffectual community outreach and communications, a lack of resources, and leadership voids. And Illinois is working on reducing these street level crimes by addressing violence in the youth. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, or the OJJDP, states that addressing street level violence such as murders and aggravated assaults and batteries that occur on the public way and often involve firearms requires a multi pronged approach. One effective model for addressing street violence, and in particular gang related or group involved street violence, is the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention's Comprehensive Gang Prevention, Intervention, and Suppression model. Developing an effective model to directly address street violence could prove productive. The research on this is still shy of magnificent. However, this does attempt to address the root causes, and in the opinion of the research previously done, it could lead to success in reducing gun violence in the near future. The data collected for this research revolves around a specific area in Macon County, Illinois, with the most gun violence. Decatur, Illinois has seen a dramatic uptick in shootings. According to the government website, Decatur's shooting numbers have tripled, and we're not even out of 2021 yet. The site states that in 2016, we saw 54 shootings, whereas 2021 has seen 153 to date, with 2 months still left in the year. The peak of these shootings in 2021 were in late summer, early fall. There was an uptick starting in June with 19 shootings. This led into July with 36 shootings reported and dealt with. And finally, slowing down again in August with 16 shootings. It is also important to note that there was a slight bump in September with 21 shootings. Abnormal for the city, seeing as the shooting rate usually goes up in the summer and is much lower in the fall and spring time frames. Analysis of data reported by Illinois police agencies and sheriffs indicate that 8 municipalities accounted for approximately 64% of the murders and aggravated assaults and batteries across the state from 2013 to 2015. These municipalities include Chicago, Aurora, Rockford, Springfield, East St. Louis, Joliet, Champaign, and Peoria. The first 6 municipalities listed reported numbers that were notably above the state's average, even after controlling for population size. Chicago alone accounted for around 43% of murders and aggravated assaults and batteries in Illinois from 2013 to 2015. Chicago's direct rise in violence can easily influence the top half of the state. Their data is comparable to Decatur. Therefore, their suggestions around attempts to reduce gun violence are relative when it comes to Macon County. The need for gun violence research is present in these communities and counties. Even within the cities that have high firearm homicide rates, community gun violence is highly concentrated within under-resourced neighborhoods. For example, an analysis of firearm homicide data from 2015 found that 26% of all firearm homicides in the United States occurred in census tracts that contained only 1.5% of the American population. This illustrates how gun violence within cities is often confined to a few under-resourced neighborhoods where predominantly Black and Hispanic Americans live. In St. Louis, for example, 42% of the city's murders in 2015 occurred in just 8 out of the city's 79 residential neighborhoods. During that year, 9 people were murdered by firearm in 9 separate shootings, all confined to one 0.4 square mile census tract. The dissolvement of our communities is apparent and has cost us lives. Firearm homicides in just 1.5% of the American population should be easy to assess and fix. This 1.5% can be handled with proper inter-county connections and focusing solely on preventing further violence in the area and surrounding regions. The averages recorded in Illinois do not lie and tell a dark tale of an uptick in violence and further destruction of inter-community county relations. In an average year, 1,363 people die by guns in Illinois, with a rate of 10.6 deaths per 100,000 people. Illinois has the 37th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. In Illinois, 39% of gun deaths are suicides and 58% are homicides. This is compared to 61% and 36%, respectively, nationwide. The rate of gun deaths in Illinois increased 32% from 2009 to 2018 in Illinois. The rate of gun violence increased 29% from 2009 to 2018. The common nationwide increase in violence can easily be linked to more access to weapons. Illinois, however, has seen extreme increases in these forms of violence in the last 10 or so years, according to the data provided. Counties in Illinois working to reduce this increase focus on strong community involvement and utilizing community development instead of plain investment. Young Black males ages 15 to 34 make up 2% of the U.S. population, but account for 37% of all firearm homicide victims. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for Black males ages 15 to 34. While only making up a small portion of the United States, they are surprisingly more intertwined in the violence than most racial groups in the United States. Black females are also disproportionately impacted by gun violence. Black females are nearly 4 times more likely to be victims of gun violence than white females. This disparity is even more pronounced among teen and young adult females. Young Black females ages 15 to 24 are 7 times more likely to be murdered by firearm than their white counterparts. Young Black females build the future of the African American community, and their being at risk puts the future of the progressive Black race at risk. The neighborhoods contributing the most violence are found in underrepresented and underfinanced communities. Communities that have suffered graphic and violent racism and seclusion, segregation, struggle the most with these issues. Community gun violence is highly concentrated with neighborhoods composed of predominantly Black and Hispanic Latino residents. These neighborhoods face a host of systemic inequalities, hypersegregation, discrimination, lack of economic opportunities, and under-resourced public services. As a result, young Black and Hispanic Latino Americans, particularly males, are disproportionately impacted by community gun violence. Systemic inequality has ruined multiple inner-city communities and restricted public access to support and protection in the United States. The question with these cases quickly becomes, what is causing the issue? Further evaluating the root cause brings surprising results. Social and economic inequalities are often at the root cause of community gun violence. These inequalities are caused by racist policies like redlining and exclusionary zoning laws that target communities of color and create segregated and underinvested neighborhoods. The same neighborhoods struggling with community gun violence also face a number of economic challenges, including the lack of access to healthy food, shortage of affordable housing, inadequate education, few jobs, and limited opportunities. The economic inequalities continue to cripple our communities without any clear plan of infrastructure changes in the future. Zoning has modernly segregated our neighborhoods and routinely strips racial voting blocks to favor the opposition. All of these things slowly influence the general mindset of those stuck living in these underrepresented areas. Unemployment is also clocked as a concern as it relates to violence in general. Within many neighborhoods with high rates of violence, the unemployment rate is over 20%. The typical household within a high poverty neighborhood has a net worth of $7,000, 40 times less than the typical household in a low poverty neighborhood. Yes, 40 times less than the typical household in a low poverty neighborhood. Likewise, there is a lack of educational opportunities as the schools are chronically underfunded. The extreme inequalities in these communities does nothing but further divide an already racially divided community. Poverty is not the direct reason for violence or even gun violence. However, it is more the result of the system of local government we have placed these citizens under. Systemic racism has infected the United States governmental systems and continues to cripple those it has already routinely hurt and offended. Possible solutions. For comparison, Alabama has created a program specifically to target crime reduction called the SCORE, or the SCORE. Their focus is on police and government working to create new bonds with community leaders in a targeted effort to reduce crime. The HIPP article states that SCORE is a crime reduction and neighborhood improvement program in Mobile, Alabama, that brings together law enforcement agencies and community leaders in a unique partnership. The partnership and its work, which we characterize as collaborative investment, challenges the organizational status quo of traditional policing models and methods. The program centers on structural change, neighborhood investment, and correcting drug-related behaviors. There is not a lot of research done specifically in this area for Alabama, but the theory could work well in comparison with the idea of creating green spaces like other articles suggested. Adopting SCORE could help reduce crime in Illinois. However, comparing Mobile, Alabama to Decatur, Illinois is a difficult task considering they are in separate states. Perhaps current organizations in Macon County could work to develop a similar program to target this rise in gun violence. To offer a conclusion, the purpose of this research was to find relations between positive community development efforts and actual data confirming the effectiveness of this form of crime reduction on gun violence in Illinois. The research around whether or not green spaces and community zoning changes is compelling, but also takes a lot of time and city budget adjusting. Some counties have found great success in utilizing their inter-county nonprofit relations to work at reducing crime. This seems to be a more valuable solution to the problem and could yield amazing results. As the research continues, it is hoped that there would be progress within the state of Illinois that would directly assess these issues seen through their counties. Hopefully, programs like the Illinois Housing Relief Program will work to reduce the rising number of foreclosures and eventually reduce gun violence in Illinois. The conclusion found from the research and data is that community development is more productive than investment. This disproves my original thesis in that investment is not as effective and is more of an indirect solution than a direct one. While the data does not point directly to numbers proving development is promising, it does offer a strong comparison between prominent white communities and low crime rates, as well as underfunded and underrepresented communities of color and rises in crime. All references used for this video are found at the end.